Hey, can anybody hear me? Because I can't hear you.
Kyle said that he would probably be a little bit late, and there's the other one. So we will get started. I guess the first thing we have on the agenda is the Robertson Road Addition zone configuration. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, sir, and thank you, everybody. Good evening. It's good to be with you tonight. This is, of course, a follow-up discussion to the item pertaining to the city-initiated, if you will, rezoning of the Trevitt Lane and Robertson Road parcel that the city owns. The last time we were in this conversation, council suggested a different approach as it relates to what we had initially proposed, which you should see here on your screen, to what it is that we are suggesting this evening, which, if we can bring that up real quick, looks quite a bit different, pertaining to what we thought was the direction that council gave us the last time we met. And as you can see here, we've got a mix of R3 along the east section, if you will, of the parcel in question, and an R2 zoning, which would be on the western edge of the parcel in question. Our purpose tonight is to see if we've captured your desire for this property, and if so, staff would like to review with you the steps that we need to take in order to make this configuration happen for a private sector offering, which would include, of course, a rescheduling of the public hearing and first reading, which we initially thought would be the case for the 19th. If we go this route, we need to reschedule and reset all of that in order to proceed appropriately. So with that, Mr. Mayor, what I'd ask is that we have Liz and Craig come up and visit with us and walk through the pertinent changes if indeed council would like to make a move in a different direction.
Not allowed? What, really? We're gonna be that stickler about it?
Yeah, basically.
I need an outlet.
She's gonna need to plug in.
Yeah, she's not gonna be
Zooming
on
in.
TV.
Zoom.
He needs to plug his
He needs
computer
an
in.
extension cord otherwise.
Yeah, I was not consulted in the planning of this room.
Okay,
It's safer over there, Steve, trust me.
okay. but I didn't want the boys against the girls.
Oh, we're not.
We did.
You did? Okay, never mind, never mind.
It's fine. We got this.
I was trying not to be sexist or
I'm a pretty
anything here.
sensitive dude. The balance did not shift that much.
But no, they were supposed to be the way we would be sitting at the dais and the other,
Fair enough.
okay?
We need some power at this table, though. I'll tell you that much
That's a
right
good, well, there are some, like, whatever those are called, so I think it's possible.
Isn't there one right there under your foot, John?
Oh, there's also one, I was,
now. Sorry, I did not mean to disrupt the whole meeting.
well, you did.
Okay. The whole
It's on that
Meeting isn't
side now.
disrupted, I guess.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, we, in the memo, we included kind of a timeframe of the change of plans for this different zoning, which we think is very relevant for you all to consider as you look at your decision tonight with this and direction to us. If you elect to move away from what we initially had publicized as R3 and C2 for that site, we are, again, in the memo, needing to obtain a surveyor to actually create this plat subdivision. If we could put up one more time, Amanda, you can see how the lines are laid out. Can we go back to the first one?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's where it's laid out now. That's how it's platted. And then if we flip to the new one, you can see that we're going to really need to go back out then because nothing follows those original plat lines. So we would need to completely get a survey done in order to get this replatted in a configuration like this if you're interested. So that's going to take a little bit of time, and we had estimated 2 months and about 10 grand to get the surveying done. Going through the planning commission then will be the next step before we would come back to you all, and that would again through the planning commission and then through with council again coming about 3 months on that. We would want to get a new appraisal because as the city manager expressed at the last meeting about this, we had this appraised truly with a different use in mind, which would have been a little bit of a commercial use. So if we're going to go with a purely residential, we're going to want to get a survey update. And so we had put that time in there that takes about a month. And then we would be able to come back with you and look at potentially a property sale if that is still the goal of this council, is to see this property put into private hands. So those are probably the big items that Greg and I wanted to kind of go through. Is definitely a change in the timeline, and it will cross over again council years and so forth and take us into next summer. And we might be able to get the property sold before the end of the fiscal year, but it is time, and we would love some direction on this if this is what you all envision.
Amber.
I know in the last meeting, we had kind of pitched it to you to figure out where the R2 versus the R3 should be. Can you walk us through the rationale, where you, how you laid this out and what the thinking was?
Mr. Mayor, councilors, you all had indicated that you did want the R2 a little bit further away from the arterial of Robertson Road. And so that's why we have that on the western edge with the individual homes entering onto the main corridor road. We worked with our public services team too on this to just look at connectivity. You see with the R3, where we could see some multifamily going on, we had envisioned a couple of cul-de-sacs, but again, one new road that would enter onto Robertson Road that way. But whether we had townhomes or duplexes or fourplexes, anything in that R3 would be that possibility. And even the lots that are farthest south there that bump up to Trevitt Lane, if we wanted to see, you know, a small medical facility in there, the coffee shop component that would be allowed. Remember, it was personal services type businesses that could also be included. So, but we did put all of the R2 single family homes along that western edge. Again, truly backing out if that's the case, or pulling out onto that new road. That is a connector to the road that currently dead ends to the north. Extended.
Councilor Bond.
Liz, would that road exit onto Trevitt Lane as well? So that an exit to Trevitt and an exit to Robertson? And then my other question is that, just more of curiosity, is it fairly standard to have a surveyor do the platting and surveying before the sale to the private, or is that do most contractors just kind of work with what they get then? Is that pretty standard?
To me, there's a danger that whoever buys the property may not like our layout.
Right.
So they may undo everything that we've done. But in order to get the zoning, we have to have some
I
lot
see.
lines,
I see.
or at least blocks and roads
Sure.
to bound the zoning districts, since we're doing multiple zoning.
Okay.
So, but they could come in and request something totally different.
So they would have to get that approved by the planning and zoning, and then the developer would pay the new survey for the new survey. Okay. Thank you.
One quick question. Is the road dead end going to the north?
To Chuck Wagon, I don't know if the other.
So it ties into another road
Yes.
for a means of egress for the upper half of this.
Well,
You
it's
can
a
kind
small
of see that
street. Yeah, it is. You kind of see it way up
if you
top.
zoom out.
Okay,
It's-
that's all I was curious about because,
I'll get up
okay, you're basically talking about, excuse me, right here.
there. Chuck Wagon goes north-south,
Oh, okay,
so that's
very
what,
good. I'm with you.
yeah.
That
that's
works.
what our engineer, city engineer played with.
Okay, because I thought that was one of the requirements is two means of egress. And if that didn't connect on, there wasn't. And that was going to give me some consternation. Very good. Councilor Pollack.
Do you anticipate, I would hate to spend the money on a re-survey and plat if you think this will be unfavorable to planning and zoning. So do you foresee any reason that they might have issue with this compared to what we had done the first time?
I think the case can be made that it complies with the comp plan,
Okay.
which is what they should be looking at.
And the neighborhood zoning to the north as well as to the south. Yeah.
Vice Mayor.
I suppose my only big concern is that this proposal actually condenses a lot more people than any other proposal we have even considered. Like, you could have, I don't know, how many of these could be all fourplexes. So it is going to be and so having this many apartments is not going to ease the problem. And so it would be attractive to a investor just because now you can now condense a lot of units into this. And so I'm very concerned that this is not going to ease the problem at all.
Councilor Gamrot.
Thank you, Mayor. And I would concur with the Vice Mayor. R3 zoning, my understanding is it allows 1 to 4 unit residential, and yeah, if there's 30, 40 parcels of potentially 4, I mean, that's way more than the 60 townhomes that were proposed a year or two ago there. So I still feel uncomfortable with, honestly, any of it being R3. I'd prefer to see strictly R1 and R2. I checked the zoning in the area, and again, I live in the area. There's some R4 further west, but my understanding is that 75% of this is all R2. And so to me, the R3 still feels unusual for the area. I know there's a little bit R3 to the north, but again, when I look at the entire neighborhood, most of it's R2. There's some R4 further west, but that's my concern, is that it's still way too dense, brings way too many people to the area.
Councilor Bond.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned too, but I guess I'm wondering about the comparison, the lot size comparison from the R2 to the R3. Do you have a rough, is it like 3,000 versus 1,500 or?
The minimum lot size is 4,000 in R2. It's also 4,000 in R3, but for every every unit over 3, you have to have an additional 1,500. So 6,000 for a 4-plex.
Yeah. Yeah, 6,000 square foot lot size for a fourplex.
For a single family home. To a duplex.
You could have 2 units on 4,000 square feet.
In the following graphic with the lot lines sketched out, are those 4,000 square foot lots or are they 6,000?
They're just for illustration purposes. I don't know that when we drew that up that they were sized.
Nice. Okay, so it's not necessarily that you would be able to put a fourplex on every single one of those because they may not be sufficiently sized lots.
Fewer lots when we actually get in there and measure them.
Okay.
Any other comments? Your pleasure. Do we go with this? Do we go back to all R2s? Do we go back to the original? I know in planning, you would definitely have R3 next to Robertson Road. Now, whether you wind up with one row of it or as it's drawn here, that would say that that's where your R3 ought to be, and then you go to R2. Or actually even C1 right along Robertson Road within a section of R3 and then R2, R1. That's the way you're supposed to build back from your more major streets, which I consider Robertson Road as one of those major streets. That's what we were taught in school.
Having the C designation was kind of what we were discussing, of eliminating.
Oh, I
altogether.
realize that. I was just making a comment that that's what they would teach you to do, was basically that corner next to Trivet and all along that east side would be probably a C2. Yeah, we did not want to do that, and the neighborhood didn't like that because of the traffic.
Is it reasonable to punt it since we just are drawing some new turn lanes there and whatnot to see if we still see the same level of consternation from the area residents after some of the turn lanes have been established? I mean, just feels like we don't know if that's helped the problem at all yet.
Are the turn lanes
And-
completed?
The turn lanes are completed, I understand. Is that right, Tom?
Yeah, pardon, I'm sorry.
Are the turn lanes completed?
On Robertson?
I don't think they're completed yet. We're fighting some weather back.
They're not.
The guy that drives it every day said no.
At least not as of 8 a.m. this morning.
Yeah,
Well-
I think we're fighting some moisture and some other things that are going on. And Chad and Alex we're gonna go out and measure it up. They thought they could put everything in within the.
Maybe that's the ideal as well, because here again, you're going to be into next summer. If we go this plan, maybe we do go ahead and punt it and let the new council make the decision. Yeah, we can kick the can down the road. I mean, just, I hate to do that, but to a point, you know, we get the new council in and they may not like this either, and they turn around and decide to redo it come January. That's another possibility about making these decisions here in kind of almost a lame duck situation.
Well, I would guess that is it too close to the election that we would do that, or should we make a decision as a council now? What would be, I guess, looking both at Liz and Craig and Carter or staff to say, you know, because it sounds like we're kind of having a hard time here making a decision. I guess I would look for some advice from our professionals that do this for a living. So I don't want to put you guys on the spot, but
We will.
But we will.
I'll
might ask
weigh
them
in,
for their advice.
Mr. Mayor, if that's okay. and-
Absolutely.
Whether we
I
should do
thought
it
you
now
were
or later.
getting ready to.
Sorry.
Oh,
you're
It's all yours.
Thank you, absolutely.
It's just now, I'm asking about now or later, Carter.
Yeah, fair, very fair question. And I would certainly say that going this route, we are definitely involving the new council. Because this is going to take time to do and so on. And without a doubt, with regard to the money that we're talking about spending, if the new council comes in and says, yeah, we don't like it. We spent all this money for what most would consider no reason. You know, and so there is that concern when you have a new council coming into the mix. The thing I like about working with this group is you certainly are the most educated about this discussion, because you've been talking about this now for more than just this phase of it. We've brought this up before, and you're very well aware of what's happened in the past and where we're at now and so on. So there is that value of getting your guidance pertaining to this, the input that you've received over the years and where we're at now. So my hope would be that we could utilize the institutional memory that you've developed to give us a course to follow. But without a doubt, if we go this route, we certainly are going to be incorporating the new council and a new re-education process, et cetera, et cetera.
Thank you.
You bet.
Jai.
I guess in terms of anticipating traffic in the area, is there any insight that you could give us in terms of, we moved away from the C2 designation because of that concern. And we're still hearing some concern that there could be density issues that are still causing a problem. Is there any insight that you might have? I mean, residential versus commercial, people, I don't know. It seems to me like it would be less traffic. I mean, there would be more people living there, so there would be more cars, but also a commercial enterprise is obviously going to draw constant traffic. And so I'm just trying to ask a crystal ball question with your expertise.
Mr. Mayor, I do think your decision to look at the turn lanes that Public Services is going to put in is very wise. We are interested in seeing what that does, and then doing the traffic study or the corridor study with the MPO and being able to get better data back to you all. So as far as commercial versus residential, I think you're right on track, Counselor, but I think it'll be interesting to see what happens with these turning lanes that are going to get put in. I think it'd behoove us to look at that. So when the MPO study.
Okay. Thank you.
The only other thing I would add, Mr. Mayor, if I may, in response to Councilor Sutherland's question, if you're expecting the corridor study, however, to dictate what ought to happen with this parcel, you will be disappointed because that is not the purpose of a corridor study. It'll try to help you understand traffic patterns and impacts in that regard, but it won't say, and therefore this parcel ought to be, whatever. The other challenge that we're having problems balancing in our minds as it relates to recommendations we're trying to fashion for you is what part of the original edict was, at least as we thought anyway, and that was with regard to using this as an opportunity to try to embrace affordable housing and offering a solution in that regard. R3 is definitely a step in that direction, but it doesn't help you with regard to, exacerbating some of the traffic issues that you may be worried about. R2 certainly, goes a little bit in that direction. And if you go into R1, you're probably not looking at an affordable housing option at the end of the day. So I would throw that out there too, in that it felt like that was some of your original direction, even though I understand and recognize that sometimes that evolves, as input comes in and so on.
Will the study, however, show whether or not it would call for a stoplight or something like that?
I think that's fair. I think it's fair to assume, but I don't know that this necessarily is going to suggest a stoplight at Trevitt, or whatever.
Just
but-
somewhere along Robertson Road, somewhere. I don't know where.
Regulation is definitely a question that a corridor study will help you understand better, without a doubt.
Mr. Sutherland?
Thank you. I think maybe my takeaway is that it could be helpful to understand a little bit more about what the turn lanes do. But I think that makes sense. I will say the affordable housing component is something that matters a lot to me. I really like this for that reason. I think I hear more and more and more, why aren't there more duplexes that, for so many reasons, things like that. So in theory, I really like this, but I think the idea of, I just don't know how long we need in order to be able to assess what impacts the turn lanes have had. Like, is this something we could come back to in 4 weeks so that this council is still able to talk about it again? Like, does that give us the time that we need, or otherwise I'd be fine with moving forward with this.
Mr. Mayor, if I heard a question in there.
Yeah, sorry.
No, that's okay. I'm not trying to be,
It sounded like there was.
I'm sorry. The
Maybe.
question is, how much time would we need to understand the turn lane impacts? Yes.
Mr. Mayor, I would say we're going to see some changes rather rapidly. 4 weeks, I don't think is critical to wait out to see how that goes. I do think if you do wait 4 weeks, we have to set a public hearing date with respect to whatever it is you determine in 4 weeks. And you're absolutely going to be in the new year at the very, very least with respect to, a 4-week time frame at this point.
Question for you then. How are you going to make that dedicated to just affordable housing?
Mr. Mayor, I think a lot of what you would suggest, Vice Mayor, with respect to your zoning classification of interest would move us in that direction or move us away from that goal.
I'm just
So-
saying that because, so further up the hill, I manage some fourplexes. They're open market and they rent for $13.50 each. That is not affordable housing. So how are we going to make that dedicated to affordable housing and not open market?
Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, you make an excellent point. My only response would be, if indeed you open yourself up to more flexibility with respect to what can be built there, that really is where your decision-making stops. Because once you have the designation made and a developer buys that property, they get to do whatever that classification allows. It may include fourplexes, it may include a church, it may include a whole bunch of things that an R3 with that broader classification would allow for. And so it could be a neighborhood grocery even. So your point is very well made. We can't guarantee that every one of those little parcels that we are just draft conceptually proposing will necessarily mean a fourplex or a small home and so on.
Just spitballing ideas. Is there a way that we could look at, because this, I don't even remember which meeting. So there was something about trying to find builders or developers that would cut their costs. And it was kind of, so you could then get somebody that could cut their costs on materials. Builders would cut their costs. The city then would cut their costs in order to actually truly build affordable housing. And so I think it was one of the state meetings that we were in, but you know what I'm saying? Is that something that we could look at maybe working towards? Because I think that's what council was truly wanting to do with that, was to do affordable housing. But if we rezone that to R3, I know investors, and that's not gonna be affordable housing, it's gonna be open market.
By the same token, and this would probably be more for our city attorney, but I don't think you're talking about by cutting the city's expenses. The only thing we can really cut is
The land
potentially-
cost.
No, we can't cut the land cost. We have to bid that out, open bid. We can't go sell it at $1 a square foot instead of whatever it would go for. That's against public ordinance. The only thing we could decide is that we would cut building permit fees or inspection fees. Isn't that about the only thing that we can really do? Because if we sell it, it has to go out on the market.
Mr. Mayor, I think that's generally true. There is, with one caveat, there is some flexibility if it's for economic development or some other things, but that would take a finding by council. So I wouldn't say you're 100% precluded from going down that road, but you know, it would take some specific findings and rationale to deviate from that typical kind of open market public bidding process that is generally required by statute.
And if you all remember the beating we took because we have sold some properties from less than appraised value, you will take another beating on that as well. So you need to be aware of that because they expect us when we sell city assets to get market value for it.
So my question would be, looking at the time, what decision do we need to do to move forward? I would say that
Very good.
we'll have to, figure that out. And I guess at 6 o'clock, I don't know if I feel ready to be like, let's go with this. And so,
Punt for another work session?
I mean, we may have to. That's how I feel, but I don't know what the rest of the council thinks, so.
I see a shaking of a head down there. Do I have thumbs up, down? Looks like we'll punt it to another work session.
Mr. Mayor, as a point of order, you will see in your agendas that indeed we are planning to cancel the November 19th public hearing. And I think that's critical that we take that up tonight and make that happen. So you'll see that in your agenda, and we're on our way to accommodating exactly what it is that you just asked us to do tonight.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's
Thank
time
you.
to
Thanks,
move and-
everybody.
Move quickly. Thank you. Thank you, Ray.